the age-old question we've worried about. Can money buy happiness? Welcome back to another episode of 5 Minute Finance. Today we're going to talk about how much money do you really need to make to be happy? And in this video we're going to dive into 2 different papers to answer this question because one paper can't really do this justice. So if I could get a timer somewhere. Cool. Alright, let's do this. The first paper we're going to look at is by Nobel Prize winning Daniel Kahneman and his colleague Angus Deaton. This paper is called High Income Improves the Valuation of Life but Not Well-Being, and that's kind of explanatory. The first thing we should do before we dive into this paper is understand the 2 categories that the authors mentioned. First, emotional well-being is more of an objective metric, and it measures things like day-to-day stresses, happiness, anguish, all of that averaged into one metric. Life evaluation, on the other hand, refers to how one person judges himself based on happiness. So they're saying how much they enjoy their life, essentially. Some key takeaways from this paper. First, well-being and life evaluation differed on how much money would impact them, but up to a certain point, they both were seen to increase with income. Although income and education were great determinants for life evaluation, things like caring for a loved one, disease, even smoking, those were more important factors for day-to-day well-being. Essentially, it was found that low income exacerbates some of the misfortunes and sadness seen with very traumatic events. So things like divorce, ill health, and being alone. If you had low income, this study found that you were more likely to feel more anguish from these events and really suffer for a longer period of time. Let's go ahead and look at this flagship figure of the paper that really dictates how income affects some of these different well-being factors. Here you'll see that the authors are plotting annual income against a fraction of the population experiencing different things. Positive affect is the average of the fractions of the population reporting happiness, smiling, and enjoyment. Not blue is basically a metric that quantifies how often you aren't feeling sadness. Stress-free is a fraction of the population who did not report stress for the previous day. So the first thing to note is that the latter, which represents average report of life evaluation, seems to continue to rise beyond some income level. So people seem to more and more deem their life as pleasurable if they're making more money. The authors infer that beyond about $75,000 per year, there's no improvement whatsoever in any of the 3 measures of emotional well-being. So if you look at the positive affect, after about that $80,000 mark, there's a very big plateau. About $75,000, your emotional well-being is satiated. No more money will bring you more daily happiness. However, in contrast, the figure shows a fairly steady rise in life evaluation with log income. So a person will continue to deem their life as more fulfilling if they make more money, which is interesting because that differs from emotional well-being. There's some answers to the questions that the authors posed. First, this graph shows you that more money does not necessarily buy more happiness, but less money does cause more emotional pain and anguish. $75,000 per year was seen to be the mark where there's no appreciable increase in emotional well-being. That amount of money seems to be enough so you can enjoy all your day-to-day things that you like to do. So you can avoid pain and disease, you can afford health care, and you can even take more time for leisurely activities, and you have the funds with $75,000 per year to afford something like that. This paper really brings up an interesting point between the distinction of emotional well-being and your own self-perception of your life or your life evaluation. There is no satiation to life evaluation for whatever amount of money you make. So as you continue to make more money, apparently it was seen that you judge your life as more and more fulfilling. Even though more money is not bringing you more happiness, for some reason we have this self-perceived notion that more money brings more fulfillment, and it's creating this sort of self-fulfilling prophecy where there's no satiation in life evaluation regardless of what income level you make. The next paper that we're going to look at is Happiness, Income Satiation, and Turning Points Around the World. Although they did find some similar things, there were some more nuances to this story. First, these authors found that around 95K there seems to be some sort of satiation to life evaluation, and still $60,000 to $75,000 per year seemed to be the satiation level for emotional well-being. Any money beyond $75,000 didn't really seem to make appreciable differences in your day-to-day well-being. Also, it's interesting that they found that satiation occurs later in wealthier regions. So this could be due to 2 things. First, it's possible that goods are more expensive in these wealthier areas, so it takes more money to really get to the same baseline of living. However, authors also bring up the point that some of the satiation is based on how you perceive yourself in the greater group. So if you're in a really wealthy area, you're going to tend to want more items and more wealth to compare yourself with those around you. The authors also found a really interesting note that differed from the first paper. They found that around the world, depending on where you were, more income actually led to less satiation. So essentially, more income beyond a certain point would start to have a detrimental effect. So you would lower your life evaluation and you would be less fulfilled with your life overall. The authors note that increasing your wealth may lead to increasing desires for material purchases. And this would just lead to this constant cycle of wanting more and being less satisfied with what you have. The key takeaways from these 2 papers in combination is that $75,000 seems to be about the key income mark for emotional well-being. So much more money beyond this annually won't really lead to more happiness on a day-to-day. More money beyond $75,000 will make you think that your life is better, and therefore that reflects in life evaluation. But if we can start to be more appreciative of what we have and we aren't solely focused on our material properties and purchases, it is up to us to make the most of our daily experiences. Make sure you stay appreciative of the little things in your life and the loved ones around you. Okay, that's time. Thank you so much for watching this second episode of 5 Minute Finance. It's been really fun in this series to try to break down big financial questions into these little appreciable chunks. I want to continue to dive into papers like this in future to answer some questions that we might have. So if you like content like this, please let me know because I'd love to produce more stuff like this. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.